Hello, I'm Mark Barbour. I'm the founding curator here at the International Printing Museum in Carson, California, just outside of Los Angeles. We have one of the world's largest collections of antique printing presses, and this is our series called The Power of the Press, where we get to dive in to the collections here at the Printing Museum and show off some presses, big, small, interesting, rare. Hopefully catch your attention on that, so keep up with the series. So today what I'm focusing in on is actually the small side of the presses. It's a side of the collection that I really love. An avid collector of small presses. I'm also an avid collector of big presses. We've got a lot of presses and stuff here. So in the middle of the 19th century, as we're getting past 1830, they're basically taking the standard printing press that had existed since Gutenberg, which we call a hand press. It's where you pull on a lever and it squeezes down to create the pressure you need for printing. First they're made out of wood, and then from 1800 on they're made out of cast iron. But then they started making them as tabletop machines for private use, or where the drive was at from 1830 on was for not just amateurs, but to market these small presses to business people, and that they could do their own printing and not pay the exorbitant prices of the printers down the street. And so the presses kept getting smaller and smaller on a table, and then they slowly started moving more towards home use. One of the early versions of this story is this press right here. It's known as a Parlor Press, and this is in England, came out in the middle of the 19th century, in the 1850s. Late 1850s. And the press is basically using much of the same mechanisms of how a hand press would work. It's a little different configuration, but let's open this guy up. This is your platen, which is heavy, beautifully made. Your paper could be placed on this side or can be placed right down there on top. This is the bed of the press with a chase, and by the way, they called it a parlor press. And when you print, you can print from type, like printer's type, big and small size faces, engravings, a wood engraving. It'd be a little more expensive if you're at home getting a wood engraving made, but maybe you have an engraving of like a bird or something else like that you want to use. The reason for calling it a parlor press was that in the middle to upper class homes in Victorian England, you have a parlor, and the parlor is where you really present yourself. You have your best objects and things that are in there. You have curio cases for curiosity, things to look at and view. So other parts of your house might be very plain, but where your guests are going to be at is coming into the parlor. So in the parlor, the family would gather. You would have games to play, books to read, artwork to do, musical instruments, maybe some poetry to read. Imagine if more of our young men and women were reading poetry in the parlor. It would be so much better. Or you might even have a printing press to print some of those poems for your beloved or your family members. Also, something to remember that in the 19th century, certainly in Victorian England, you would present yourself at a house with your calling card, which you would present to the butler. But you got to print your own calling cards. So we have different versions of press. This press would have been used to print parlor cards. So we got some type we're placing into our press. You got to love the little drawer in this guy with all your supplies. We've got an engraving there. Let's place that in. And the press itself is going to be, you use a hand ink roller. We're just doing quick and dirty printing today. Let's see if everything behaves. Place our paper on. So you have your lever. It's going to create our power. That's all it takes. And we even spelled everything right. That makes it a good day. We're going to let our card dry there. So here then is our the beginnings of hobby printing, home printing, and slowly this morphed into various other shapes and designs, not just this particular press, but other ways to get printing accomplished in a small format and all. So hope you enjoyed seeing the English parlor press from the 1850s. You got to get one for your own family.